Hello and welcome everyone. We're going to start soon, as you all know. Please don't forget to log in to Mentimeter, use the code 23958303 and give us your questions. We will try and answer all of them as soon as possible. Hello and welcome everyone. This is, sorry. Hello and welcome everyone. This is the IRIS Revision 4 webinar. As you know, we have officially launched and we're ready to take questions and answers from you. So if you are unfamiliar with Menti, you basically just go to menti.com and use the code 23958303. Or if you just use your phones to scan the QR code right in front of you and on the screens. We have exactly 1 minute to start, and I will be handing over to Anish very, very soon. So yes, looking forward. And all right, I'd like to hand over to Anish Bawa. Go ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the IRIS Certification Revision 4 webinar. My name is Anish Bauer, IRIS Technical Manager, and it'll be my pleasure today to give you an in-depth understanding of what we have just launched. So today, as said by my colleague Tanvi, we're absolutely glad to have partially deployed the IRIS revision system on the 5th of February 2024, followed by the full development of the deployment 2 weeks ago on the 11th of March 2024. So today, indeed, we are very happy to go over with all the details on this latest IRIS Revision 4 certification deployment. And now I am glad to hand over the floor to my colleague Maria. The floor is yours. After I explain the agenda, so Maria will explain everything about the transition to the Revision 4 certification scheme. She will go over some statistics. After that, my colleague Anna Emanuel will talk about the Revision 4 templates and scopes. And then last but not least, before the question and answer session, I will talk about the IRIS certification technology and the respective technological evolutions that have just been deployed, as I explained to you before, in the last weeks and months. So now, without further ado, Maria, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anish, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon to some people may be seeing us in Asia. So my name is Maria Romero, IRIS Business Operation Manager, and as Anish was saying, I will give you some highlights about the transition to Revision 4 together with some statistics about where we are today. Next slide, please. Just to remember or to remind everyone, after the publication of ISO 22163 and the new IRIS rules in 2023, we have shown you the IRIS Revision 4 implementation timeline. And you see where we are today. Today is 8th of April, and we are just 1 week over the start and the full launch of IRIS Certification Revision 4. So from the 1st of April, it has been possible to do certification audits in IRIS Revision 4, recertification audits, so for companies that were already certified in Revision 3 and then wants to go for Revision 4, and also transition audits for Revision 4. So just to give you a little bit some idea, and we explained this before, but we had certification audits in Revision 3 until the end of last year. Then surveillance audits will go still until September, and recertification audits in Revision 3 were over once we started on 1st of April with all the recertification, certification audits and transition audits in Revision 4. Before we have started in April, we have trained all the IRIS auditors in Revision 4, and I will give some highlights about that, but especially my colleague Anna Emanuel will give you more details about how these trainings went. So next slide, please, Tambi. Today, I wanted to give you an idea of where we are now in terms of transitions to Revision 4. So here you see on the left the IRIS Revision 4 audits that have already been planned in the diary. So you see that the majority of them are recertification audits. You see the green bars. So this we have 62 in April, followed by 75 in May, and then in June, July, August, September, this is a little bit decreasing, but we can explain it because today all the companies or the certification bodies needs to confirm the appointments at least 2 months in advance. So we will see that these numbers go higher, most probably also as we have new companies registering in the IRIS portal, we will have much more certification audits and also in the future transition audits in Revision 4 in the next months. Then I would like also to remind you that there are some pre-appointments of IRIS revision for recertification audits in the diary. Pre-appointments means that they have not been yet confirmed. And I think it's very important to remind to auditors, certification bodies and companies that you need to plan so you can really prepare for your audits in IRIS revision 4. Just to give you, because in the IRIS revision transition guideline, we have also explained you what are the ways to move from an IRIS revision 3 to an IRIS revision 4 certification. And you see there that here we are talking mainly about recertification, which is the preferred way to move to an IRIS revision 4 audit from a company that is already certified in IRIS revision 3. But just remind that these pre-appointments needs to be converted in real appointments in the near future, and that you need to take into consideration that you need to confirm the data of the company 90 days in advance, that the pre-appointment needs to be confirmed also 60 days in advance, and that audits cannot be done, or the last day of audit needs to be 30 days before the reference date of the company. This is to be reminded. Next slide, please. Thank you, Tammy. So related to, because you saw in the first part where we have shown you the time frame of the implementation of IRIS revision 4, that we still can have some IRIS revision 3 surveillance audits until September. So I wanted to show you the status currently. There are some surveillance audits planned in revision 3 in April, and this number is decreasing until September, where we will have the latest surveillance in revision 3, and then they will have 3 months to close the cars. So on the 31st of December, we will not have any more audits in revision 3 uploaded to the portal. It's good to remind also that there are still also some pre-appointments of IRIS revision 3 surveillance in the portal that have not been confirmed. And specifically, you have now the possibility, because from the 1st of April, you can also do transition audits. So during a surveillance audit, your next surveillance audit, be it surveillance audit 1 or surveillance audit 2, you can also transition to IRIS revision 4. So all these companies still have the possibility to go for an IRIS revision 4 audit. Just as I said before, take into consideration the timing so you don't have any impacts in the QPL or in the planning of the audit. Next slide, please. Yeah. Also, you know that during the IRIS revision 4 transition, we have given some flexibility to companies and to certification to better plan their audits. So this was for companies that had the reference date between the 1st of April and the 30th of June, or that they had their audits planned from the 1st of January to the 31st of March. We have focused mainly on recertification audits, and the companies and the certification bodies were given the possibility to shift their audits to a maximum of 3 months. And then we have given them 2 months to close the cars. And I wanted to show you that we have received some requests, no more than 50, from several certification bodies to postpone some of the audits that were planned initially, and you see in the chart, in January, February, March, or that had the reference date in April, May, or June, and they have been postponed to a maximum of 3 months, and they have 2 months to close the car. This we want to highlight because it's a possibility that is still open, because we are still in April, so there are still companies that have the reference day in May and in June. And if you think that this will ease your entering into the revision 4 transition, you can request it to the certification body, and if you fulfill this criteria, your audit can be postponed in order to give you a little bit more of time to prepare for an IRIS revision 4 transition in the best way. Next slide, please. Yeah. Regarding the auditor pool, so as I was showing in the time frame before we have started with IRIS revision 4, we have made sure that all our IRIS auditor revision 3 were trained or upgraded to revision 4. We have done trainings all over the world, and Emmanuel will give you more details, but I wanted just to show you where our auditors are. So geographically, you see that a little bit more half and half are in Asia and in Europe, some in America, some in Oceania, and 3 out of 4 auditors are lead auditors, which is a good thing because they can manage themselves the audits and plan and coordinate the teams of audits when they go to your companies. Next slide, please. Yeah. From my side, and before we go to the next part where Emmanuel will give you more details about the templates and the scopes, I wanted to remind you about several things. Well, firstly, it's not written here in the slide, but if you want to know more about the IRIS revision for transition, you have a guideline that is in the download area of the IRIS portal, and it's even anyone can download it. And it's good because you will see how to transfer from a revision 3 audit to a revision 4 in a recertification moment or in a surveillance audit moment. You can also see how much an audit, a transition audit will last, and have more information about how to schedule the audit and the different timing that you need to use. So this, I recommend that you also have a look at this document. But without further ado, regarding to the new IRIS revision 4, I would like to remind you about some topics and some timings that you need to consider, specifically because we have seen that there are already many audits that are not yet planned, where certification bodies and companies are maybe thinking about what is the best way to do the transition for them. So please be aware that audits can be performed 150 days before the reference date, and then no later than 30 days before the reference date. So this is the time frame that you have, and you cannot have audits happening in the latest 30 days before the reference date. After 30 days of the reference date, the data package will be removed, so there would not be any more possibility to consult any data from the company. I would like to remind companies that 90 days before the start of the audits, they need to update or confirm the company's master data. This is also specifically important for companies going from revision 3 to revision 4, because there are many new items in the master data that you will need to confirm and that you will need to even fill in. 60 days before the audit, the data package needs to be in the server, and it's a diary deadline also to confirm the audits, because you, just to remind you, now it has an impact on the QPL. If you do not confirm the audits 60 days in advance and the data package is on the server, you will have a problem, because not even the browse level will be granted. And also, please remind that 30 days before the audit plan is to be sent to the auditee and uploaded also to the diary. So please be careful here, because now with all the companies that we see, they are still in the pre-appointment phase and needs to confirm when the audit is going to be done. All these dates needs to be taken into consideration. Once the audit has been finalized, 30 days after, it's the deadline to finalize the report and upload it and then you have, as before, 90 days to close the cars. So, and of course, limited to the reference date, because the closure of cars needs to be always before the reference date. So that's all from my side, and I give the floor to my colleague Anne-Emmanuelle Baudrier. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Anne-Emmanuelle Baudrier. I am the IRIS technical leader. So we will continue with the templates and scopes. Next slide, please. Just before that, I would like to give an overview regarding the UG training revision 4 that we performed the last few months. Indeed, we started from January until mid of March. We did more than 17 training in 9 countries and 13 cities. So I'm really happy that we did all of this training with the IMC team. And we wanted to give you just this overview to explain to you how international is IRIS revision 4. and also to give you that it was a bit challenging for us to do all this training before the launch in April. The next slide, please. Regarding the results, they are quite very good, actually. We got 96% of the auditors who were successful to the examination regarding the UGE training. So it means that the majority of the auditors understood the training. We got like maximum scoring 30 on 30, and the average was 26. So I wanted to congratulate all the auditors for their very good result and for their performance. Next slide, please. So that was the overview regarding the UGE training that was really important before the launch of Revision 4. And then to continue, I will explain to you some templates that we upload in the IRIS portal. So they are available in the download area. So I will start first of all with the turtle diagram. This template is useful to define your process. It is not mandatory, but can be used for the definition of your process. Then you can find as well the changes impacting the RQMS template. So this one is a new version relating to Revision 4 with the same philosophy of Revision 3. You must, the organization, must fill up this template if applicable. It means if there are any changes impacting the RQMS, and this template must be also uploaded in the data package for the organization when applicable. In addition of that, the lead auditor must check the content of this template and validate it accordingly with the organization before the start of the audit to define properly the audit plan. Then you can find, in addition of that, some template relating to direct customer feedback for the gold application. It's only applicable when the organization are eligible for the gold application. Then finally, we also have the IRIS complete form, also updating relating to Revision 4. That's the overview of all the template that you can find in the IRIS portal regarding the Revision 4 upgrade. Next slide, please. Then we also have some documents that can be useful and support for the organization. So we have the summary and the overview of all the mandatory and recommended PIs and related documentation. We have the product scope relating to Revision 4 because now we changed the product scope. We have 9. I will enter in the detail in the next slide. Then we have the correlation list with Revision 3 and 4 that with this document you can see the correlation with the previous scope and the new scope. Also, it is not mentioned in this slide, but we also have now in the IRIS portal the KO question and the customer perception question that will be useful for the organization, but also the auditor to organize the audit because we changed the question. Next slide, please. So, like I said, in Revision 4 now we have 9 product scope. As you can see, we have like a flow chart with different level. Let's say that level 0 is a component, so it's a basic product scope. Then let's say level 1 are all the following product scope: mechanical, guidance, electrical, and electronical. Then in level 2, you have railway vehicle, system, railway network, and finally the top level integration. So all the details regarding the product scope are in the portal. We put you some product, for example, relating to each product scope, and what you need to understand is that you need to take into consideration the primary function of the product to define the proper product scope. For example, for pantograph, it will belong to electrical because the primary function of pantograph is electrical. Okay, even if it could be also placed in systems, but as the first function of pantograph is electrical, is belonging to electrical. So that's the philosophy regarding the product scope. So the list also in the portal is not exhaustive. You may have more product applicable for this 9 product scope, but we try to give you an overview to find the product relating to your organization and understand the different type of product scopes. Next slide, please. Finally, the auditor scope are exactly like the 9 product scope, so I will give you more explanation here. As you can notice now, we have 2 new product scope, integration and railway network compared to revision 3. Railway network replace infrastructure. Also, you need to know that signaling is not anymore inside railway network, but inside systems. And then we decide to split mechanical and guidance and electronical and electrical. We don't have anymore interface as a product scope. So like I said, you have different level. In this flow chart regarding the product scope, it is the same for the auditor. So for example, an auditor who has a level, let's say 0 component, can apply for the level 1 for mechanical, guidance, electrical, electronical, etc. It is the same. If you want to apply for the level 2, an auditor who already has the level 1 scope, he can do it also. So he will apply through special case study and interview. And then if he was successful, he will be eligible for the level 2 product scope that he choose. And if you have the level 2 level product scope, you can apply for the high level integration. For integration, there is a specific cases because I know today we have some auditor, they have all the level that I explained here. And finally, since we have this flowchart, they can be eligible for integration, but we decide for integration to make sure that it's really understood and managed by all the auditor who may be eligible to do an extra interview. It will be an oral interview and they will take place in the following months. We will perform a communication to all the CB for the auditor who are eligible for integration, and they will do this small oral interview to make sure that they understood the specificity related to integration product scope. Okay, so it's not just the fact that you have all the below level, you must also pass the oral interview for integration. So that was the overview regarding the different product scope and the auditor scope. I hope now it is clear for all of you. What you need to remember now is the fact that we don't have any more coding for product scope, and we have now 9 product scope that we need to understand with some example, and all the documentation are available in the portal. And if you need further information, don't hesitate to contact the IMC team. It will be a pleasure for us to give you more detail and example regarding the product scope. Thank you. So I think that's all for my part. Thank you very much for your attention. I will give the floor now to my colleague Anish for the last part.
Thank you very much. In fact, wow, that's amazing. We have done a lot of work in the last months and last few years. Indeed, with all the heavy training campaigns that we've just done, and as Maria said, the close follow-up of all the transition audits and so on. Before I go into my part, which is the introduction of the new technological elements, the new deployments and developments we've made in the IRIS technology, let's first take a few minutes for me to allow you to ask more questions. So I give you a few more minutes to go back to this slide that we're showing on the screen. So please, in fact, again, as Tanvi told you, scan this QR code or log on to menti.com with the following code to provide your questions, because after my part we will have a question and answer session, and indeed the floor will then be yours to provide questions for us to answer. So this is a unique opportunity where the 3 of us from the IRIS management unit at UNIFE are able to provide you answers to your questions on the IRIS certification revision 4 scheme. So indeed, for those that are not able to scan the QR code, please go to menti.com, and then enter the code 2395 8303. 2395 8303. So again, just to repeat, you can scan the QR code with your mobile phone, and provide us any questions you may have. Okay, so in the meantime, I will now start with my part. Thank you very much, Tanvi. Indeed, it's a great pleasure today for me to explain to you the technological evolutions that we've put into the IRIS portal, the new audit tool web application, and the database that connects the whole certification scheme together. So in fact, today I will not provide you a training per se. However, I will provide you some key and essential elements that you organizations can understand on the new IRIS technological system. And I will really focus on the new audit tool, in which I call the IRIS audit tool web application. So today I will talk about just a few reminders, as my colleagues have mentioned just before. I will go into the company master data. I will talk about the data package. These will be the two reminders. And then I will go into the details of the new audit tool web application, how to purchase it, how to access it, what to do with it, and how your companies can use it for your preparation in terms of internal audits, for your preparation for the revision 4 audits to come. So on the next slide, I will, as promised, just go over a little reminder. You may have seen this a few times. As you know, now more than ever, the company master data is so essential as it has many impacts on the processes within the certification scheme. For example, as you know, we have no more audit day calculator per se. Now the audit day calculation is done directly in the company master data. So here you need to ensure when you confirm and validate your master data before the appointment is made, as Maria explained, you shall ensure that the number of employees related to rail-related activities on your site are correct and up to date, because this now has a direct impact on the duration of your audit. It would be a shame throughout the audit if your auditors find out there's a mistake there. It will incur more administrative processes. The company master data is also very important because you companies will then have to now specify the audit assessment, the scope of the audit. Are you wishing to achieve the full certification, or are you striving to obtain the simplified assessment? And here the simplified assessment, I refer to micro, small, and the medium type. So this is also one very important thing you have to ensure that is up to date in the company master data. And as I showed you in our previous webinar, you will then see in the company master data where and how to specify the total turnover and the total staff headcount on your site. And a concoction of those two will relate to if you are eligible for the full assessment or the simplified assessment. But please bear in mind that you can update this before every audit. However, the movement between a full and simplified assessment can only be done during a recertification timeframe. So only in a recertification or, of course, certification audit, you're able to change the audit scope. Last but not least, we believe that the company master data is also very important because your organizations will be able to select what project management is undergone within your site based on the clause 8.1.3. Is it engineer to order? Is it make to order? Or do you do your project management in the sense of making to stock? This is also quite important to specify in the company master data. Just to conclude this slide, as you know, you have to update this and validate it 90 days before the start of the audit. And of course, your certification body, when Maria was explaining the transformation of the pre-appointments to the appointments, shall also be checked by your CBs. So in the next slide, I will go into some further specificities on the data package. You may realize that we have done a few updates, and I have also updated the IRIS Portal Company Master Data Guideline, which you can find on the IRIS Portal download area, which will withhold all of this information. So the point is, for each revision 4 audit appointment, there will be a respective area and a button called Data Package Upload that will be available for the organization to provide the respective data package. So here you see the 10 related data package files that shall be uploaded. So number 1, you have the evaluation eligibility for the simplified approach, which is not always mandatory. This is based on the company master data. Then you have the changes impacting the rail quality management system, as explained by Anna Manuel. This is also, again, not always mandatory. It's based on the applicability. After that, the third item is the turtle diagrams or comparable for the max 5 key processes. This is the first mandatory file to be uploaded, followed by number 4, the list of organizations, processes, and interactions. Again, this is mandatory. Number 5, mandatory PIs, including their definitions and their values for the audited period. Again, mandatory. Followed by number 6, this is not mandatory. For achieving the gold level, you shall also then upload the direct customer feedback. This is one of the templates that Anna Manuel also just explained was recently updated. And then you have the last 4 in the following order: customer complaint status, warranty claim statistics, the management review report, and the process PIs, including their definition and the values for the audited period for the 5 key processes. Those 4 are also mandatory. I'm also happy to let you know that we have recently, a few months ago, updated the maximum allowance of the size for these uploads. So now it's moved from 2 megabytes to 15 megabytes per file. Just to repeat, as Maria said, after a successful audit or maximum 30 days after the reference date, the data package is automatically removed and deleted from the server. So now it is my humble pleasure to explain to you some key elements about the IRIS Audit Tool web application on the next slide. Okay, first things first. How can an organization purchase the new IRIS Audit Tool web application? So if you can already see, in my next 3 or 4 slides, I'm going to mostly show you screenshots, and you will see on the top left or right corner of each screenshot, you will see numbers saying 1, 2, 3, and so on. This will be the sequential order of my explanations. So the first thing, in order to purchase the IRIS Audit Tool web application for a organization, you shall first navigate to the IRIS portal. So it's www.iris-rail.org. Once you navigate to the IRIS portal, one shall then click Shop, which is on the top hand ribbon. Once the shop is clicked, you will see in screenshot 1 on the left-hand side of the screen 2 types of available products that the IRIS unit are selling. You have the IRIS Certification Performance Assessment, and then on the right-hand side, you have the IRIS Audit Tool web application. The first thing you need to do is click More, and on that, once clicked, you will see a more detailed page. That page is screenshot 2. On screenshot 2, you see a page called Welcome to the IRIS Portal Shop, IRIS Certification Audit Tool web application. Here you will see a detailed page on the key functionalities on the new Audit Tool web application. And then what you shall do is scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page to then select the number of users you want to purchase the IRIS Audit Tool web application for. Long story short, the way to purchase this new audit tool is exactly the same for organizations as we had in revision 3. One thing to note is in order to get to the third screenshot on the bottom of the page, you have to be logged in as an organization. So this means if you are not yet logged in, you will not be able to select the number of licenses you want to purchase. Once you do this, you will go to a certain usual steps of an ordering process. However, I want to just highlight two key elements. If you purchase the order tool via credit card or via PayPal and WorldPay, the delivery of the order tool web application will be almost instantaneous. So you will get it instantly, with the stipulation that the payment has been confirmed and accepted by WorldPay or PayPal. However, if you decide to select prepayment, then please allow 5 to 7 business calendar days in order for us to process and confirm your payment. On the next slide, we will now assume that you have successfully purchased and paid for the new IRIS Order Tool web application and have received access to it. So of course, once you've paid for it, you will receive an email with detailed instructions on how to access the new Order Tool web application. Now we will assume that you have already received that email and have accessed the tool. So in screenshot 4, you see what I call the IRIS Order Tool web application dashboard. This dashboard is a one-stop shop to show you all the internal audits you have made, all the internal audits you have planned, to see which ones are in progress, which ones are completed, which ones potentially have actions, issues, corrections to be resolved, and so on. So what you do after you are navigated to the dashboard is you click My Audits. So this is shown on screenshot 4 on the left-hand side. You click My Audits. When you click My Audits, you go to screenshot 5. Now in screenshot 5, you see it's completely empty, and maybe it's a bit small, but you see in the middle of the screenshot it says no element found. This is what happens when you first click and enter the audit tool, because you currently have not made an internal audit yet. So let's create one. So on the 5th screenshot, on the right-hand side, on the top right-hand side of the 5th screenshot, you see a green button called Create. What you do is you click on the plus button called Create, and this will navigate you to the 6th screenshot. And here you will be able to fill in basic company master data to create your internal audit. Your IRIS portal ID will be automatically connected. You will put in your company name, the audit dates, the readiness review start date and end date, and the audit start date and end date. Now, just for your information, and as I explained in a previous webinar, all internal audits are on a dedicated server and are not accessible by anyone except those users connected to the organization who has purchased the order tool. So it does not matter what exact dates and names you put in this. This is just what is needed for information, basic information, to create the internal audit. Then you see on the 6th screenshot on the bottom a final button called Create. Once you click this button, you go to the next slide, and you see my screenshot number 7, which is the My Audit list, but now with a filled-in audit. So you have the appointment ID, the company name, the certification body, and the lead auditor. This is all fake. This is called the lead auditor of an internal CB and an internal CB auditor. Then you have the start date and end date that you've put in before, the activity, the standard. At the moment it will stay revision 4, and then you have a certain set of columns that show you the progress of the audit, of your internal audit. So your first one is progress. This progress takes the mandatory elements to be filled in the audit, divided by how many elements you have filled in. So it's not a scoring, it's really just showing you a progress of the audit. So if you've done half the audit, it will then say 50% progress. After that, you have 3 columns called scoring, customer perception, and performance evaluation. These are the 3 pillars of the IRIS certification audit. You got the enablers, the customer perception, and the performance evaluation. And here you have the ability to see in a bird's eye view the scoring that you've provided as you filled in the internal audit. Now, to get into the internal audit, you have to look at the right-hand side of screenshot 7. I've highlighted it in a green box. This has to be clicked. So it's an eye symbol. So what you have to do is click on the eye symbol to enter the internal audit. Once you enter the internal audit, I'll show you just in a bit. I would like to show you screenshot number 8. Once you click and open the internal audit, you will see multiple areas within the new audit tool. However, most of them are similar to that of revision 3. So you have the company master data, their audit master data, the assessment sheet, the readiness review, the performance evaluation, the customer perception, actions, everything about raising minor and major non-conformities, improvement actions are there. Then you have a consolidated audit summary, an offline mode, and a generic part where you can see the status of your audit, your internal audit, and of course, you will be able to see the progress as well on the screenshot 7. So now let's go into the audit. On the next slide, I want to just highlight key elements of the tool. So I'm not going to today, as I said, it's not a training. I'm not going to go into every single page, but I would like to show you 2 pages. Firstly, the data and readiness review, which we've combined in one area, and then I will show you the assessment sheet. So in the data and readiness review, what you see on the following screenshot 9, after clicking readiness review, you will see a subset of around 60 questions, items that are divided into 2 segments. Segment number 1 is called data review, that shall be commenced at every single audit, has to be done at every audit, and you see the data review within section 1, so 1.2, 1.3, and so on. And then when you scroll a bit further down, you will see section 2, which includes all the readiness review items. So here you can see on the performance assessment rules that we have published some time ago on page 24, more details about the data and the readiness review. Now, just to talk about functionality of this page, you see on the left-hand side, you see the number of the item. Then the column to the right is the item. So you see, for example, item 1.1.1 is the management review report. And then to the right of that, you have 3 more columns. You have the column findings and evidences, where when you're preparing your audits, you can fill in as an internal audit, for example, your findings and evidences concerning that topic. And then, of course, you can assess under scoring what level you believe is achieved with this respective item. And for the readiness review and data review, it's the following scoring available are okay, not okay, and not applicable. Of course, some elements and items are excludable. For example, the data review item regarding direct customer feedback is only applicable when the organization is striving for the gold level. So if you are a new organization, you can exclude this in your internal audit and no longer need to follow that. On the next slide, and this is what's very interesting compared to the previous audit tool, and here you see where the major changes are, is the respective assessment sheet. So Before I go into the details, I wanted to repeat what my colleague Emmanuel said about one of the documents we've recently published on the portal. It's the one concerning the KO and the knockouts and the customer perception items. So you can see these items directly on the IRIS portal. We know a lot of you were willing to see this, so we have done this for you. Now, without further ado, let's talk about the assessment sheet. So of course, on screenshot 10, if I go from left to right of the screenshot, you will see you first have to click assessment sheet. And here you have a harmonized and new optimized way of viewing and assessing the items within the revision 4 assessment sheet. So just so you know, there are 342 revision 4 assessment sheet items. On the top hand side, we have made dedicated filters, so you can filter very quickly for each chapter. So you have one filter dedicated for all items, and then you have a dedicated filter for chapter 4 all the way to chapter 10. And then you have a dedicated filter for customer perception. So you will see the 10 related items if you click customer perception. And just so you know, as we told you before, there's no longer a double assessment regarding the customer perception items. There's no longer a mini assessment sheet regarding the customer perception items. There's only 10 assessment sheet items linked to customer perception within the enablers. On the top right hand side, you see there is a gearbox. When you click this gearbox, you will be able to see a smart filtering, which I decided not to show you now. But when you get it, the audit tool, you can click this and you can actively, proactively, reactively be able to, in a smart way, search for any keywords in the descriptions of the items, in the examples, to quickly help you find the respective item you are looking for within these 342 revision 4 items. So now let's talk about the respective columns. The first column is the number column. So you have all the respective assessment sheet items for the headers, the subheaders, and the items, followed by a new column which we have put in called description. So you no longer have multiple and hundreds of columns like we have had in the previous order tool. Now you have a consolidated column called descriptions, and here you will see all the maturity levels written out for each item. We have a one-line approach in the audit tool, which means one item per line, including all of the maturity levels. To the right of that, you will see the example column. Here you will have the respective examples. Followed by that, you have the scoring. Now you do not have to click 3 or 4 times to assess an item. Now you can just hover over the maturity level and click it. You see the status column, followed by the findings and evidences and the item type column. So we let you purchase the audit tool web application and proactively prepare for the audit. Just to remind you, as one of my last things to say today, why internal audits are very important for you. So we believe you shall purchase the IRIS Audit Tool web application in order to prepare for your IRIS Revision 4 audit. We believe it's quintessential for you to perform a gap analysis, for example, when starting, a gap analysis when transforming from revision 3 to 4. It will allow you to help prepare for the readiness review, as I've just shown you, and of course, notwithstanding the actual assessment sheet. Of course, once you become IRIS certified based on the revision 4 scheme, you can also use the audit tool to follow up after the assessment, to continue to improve alongside the certification cycle. So without further ado, that's everything I have to say today for the IRIS certification technological system. Now let's go to the next slide and the slide after that, to go into the in-depth question and answer session for the three of us to go over. So thank you very much for all the audience. I see now there are a significant amount of questions compared to before. So I have a first one for Maria. My site has to face surveillance audit 2, IRIS revision 3 in September 24. Is it mandatory to upgrade to IRIS revision 4 in this current year, or can I go for IRIS revision 4 next year? Please advise. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anish, and thank you to the audience for these questions. Well, as we saw before, you know that in the time frame or the timeline that we have for IRIS revision 4 and for the implementation, you can do an IRIS revision 3 surveillance audit until the 30th of September of 2024. So it means that you can, if you want, still do a surveillance audit 2 in IRIS revision 3, but it needs to finalize before the 30th of September 2024. And then you need to close any corrective actions that you may have before the 31st of December. And of course, before the reference date, if it happens that it's before that date. So I will say yes. And then next year, if you are now in a surveillance audit 2, you will go for a recertification in revision 4. Yep, you can do it.
Thank you very much, Maria. And
You're welcome.
My pleasure. Whilst you are on the screen, I give you a second one that I've just found. From when can new certification be initiated?
New certifications can be initiated already on the 1st of April, as is the case for recertification and for transition audit. So from now onwards, you can always have a new certification in revision 4, but given that you have made the appointment 60 days in advance, all reminders that we have done today are respected, but you can already start. Thank you, Anish.
My pleasure. And just bear with us, please, because we're going through all the 39 questions we've received. So I'm at the same time reviewing and I'm checking who is able to answer them. Okay, so in fact, I will just go through the questions from top to bottom. So I see the following. What is, Maria, this is for you. What is the reference date? Can you please explain with some examples?
Yes. Well, the reference date is when you will be taken from when you start the IRIS certification process and cycle. So it means it's the last day of your first audit, of your first certification audit. And it's going to be always a reference for you, because you know that the cycle of IRIS certification has certification audit, then a surveillance audit 1, then a surveillance audit 2, and then you have a recertification. And all surveillance audit 1 and surveillance audit 2 and recertification needs to take into consideration the reference date. So it means that imagine that you do an audit now, a new certification that ends on the 30th of April. This will be your reference date. And then next year, when you do a surveillance audit 1, you will need to take it into consideration to schedule your surveillance audit 1 between 150 days and 30 days before your reference date, and to close your cards always before the reference date. And like this, the following year and the following one.
Thank you, Maria. And Emmanuel, I have just seen a few questions for you. So someone has asked, where can I find the list of requirements that are not considered for project types B and C? So maybe to reiterate, are there anywhere some information about the respective project types? Sorry, Anne-Emmanuel, you're on mute.
Indeed, sorry.
Perfect.
You can find all the information regarding the project type inside the performance assessment, where we define the different type by definition and with some example. And also we have a tree where you can see the different type with some explanation and example. If it is not clear, it will be my pleasure to give more information if they contact the MC team, or even if in the next webinar maybe, but normally all is available in the performance assessment.
Perfect. And I have another question for you, which you've already answered in the presentation, but I reiterate it. How can we have the detail of the KO question without buying the tool?
So you can find the details regarding the KO question now in the IRIS portal. In the download area, we have some documents, informative document to support the organization, but also the members of IRIS. So you will find them here in the IRIS portal.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so I have 2 or 3 questions about auditors. So, Anna Manuel, firstly, and I will ask the 3 in one go because they're all related.
Okay.
Someone says, when will the next training for auditors begin or take part? Someone else mentions, you did mention 245 auditors are now qualified according to revision 4. Do you have plans to increase the quantity of auditors in 2024? Those are the 2 questions, so I give you back the floor.
Okay, I will try to reply to all of them, maybe not in the order, but just for information, like I said, we finalize the upgrade training. We just have one last upgrade training. This one is scheduled next week, actually. It is the last one for upgrade training. After it will be a full training, so it means it will be mostly for new auditors, and it will be more long and more in the details regarding this type of training. Of course, we will have more what we saw in my slide. My slide was focusing only on the auditor who apply for the session of upgrade training. Unfortunately, not everyone apply for this upgrade training. And also, it was only the auditor who success the upgrade training in the first attempt. So as you, if you remember the slide, 9 auditor failed. So this 9 auditor will attend a second time the examination to be able to be eligible for the revision 4. And in addition of that, we already did some full training. So it's been training for new auditor. We did 2 sessions, one last year in December and another one in March. We got, if I remember well, I think 12 new auditors. And if we have more application for the full training, we may organize another full training in Q2. So I'm waiting for candidates, but I think globally we have, I think, around 260, 270 auditor today for the revision 4, and we are looking for more.
Thank you very much, Anna Manuel. And of course, if you have not noticed, I waited for you two to answer your questions before all of mine, and I assume there's a bit more for the new audit tool. So I will now, without further ado, go through all of them as we speak. So the first is, the audit tool is currently only in English. How to use it in Germany? I assume you mean German. Should I buy it now, which makes only sense if I can switch to German later on? In fact, you shall, in fact, you are allowed to buy it now, no problem. We are using the SaaS approach, software as a service. So you will see in the details on the IRIS portal shop, once you purchase the audit tool, you have a let's say a SaaS approach of 5 years, which means you're allowed to keep it for 5 years, access to the tool, which includes all upgrades, all developments, and in your specific question, it also includes the updates regarding different languages. So once the German assessment sheet comes out, no problem. If you buy it now, you will not have to purchase it again. I hope that answers your question. I see one for Anna Manuel again, but I give you the floor later after me. Someone is asking about more information on scopes. If we can provide more information. Okay, and then I see one. Yes, the webinar will be recorded and we will provide you this afterwards. When exporting the assessment sheet, the new IRIS Auditor web application, how to see it? Okay, so as I just showed you, the IRIS Revision 4 assessment sheet is now available for purchase via the IRIS Audit Tool web application user credentials. So once you purchase the IRIS Audit Tool web application, you will then be able to obtain the latest IRIS Revision 4 assessment sheet, and you will be able to export it. How can we use one account of IRIS Audit Tool to do an internal audit which may have 8 internal auditors? Okay, so here I will touch upon the user credentials. So in fact, instead of the Revision 3 Audit Tool being one user, one license per audit tool, now the Revision 4 IRIS Audit Tool web application is one user credential per user. So you do not have to be, let's say, bound to one laptop or one PC, but the user credentials are bound to a user profile. And the user profile is the profile that is linked in the IRIS portal. So I didn't show you this information, but once you select how many licenses you want to purchase, and you click next and you go to the shopping basket, your organizations will have to select which user you want to associate the license to. You can only associate a license to a user that has an active profile in the portal. So first, if the user is not there, you shall first put it in the portal by logging in, clicking administration, clicking add user, and then you'll be able to purchase it. Now, if you have multiple sites and different internal auditors in each site, then you need various audit tool user credentials. So then you need to purchase more than one. Then I see, is it mandatory to use the audit tool? I see a few questions here about that. So in simple, for the IRIS approved auditors to achieve and undergo the IRIS certification audits, it is absolutely mandatory to use the audit tool. This is for the auditors. For the organizations, it's not mandatory. However, it's highly recommended in order to perform more adequate internal audits. As I showed you, now you will have the assessment sheet. You'll be able to generate reporting, follow up the respective actions, and so on if you use the audit tool. I see another question. Good morning. Is performing internal audits by the IRIS audit tool mandatory? Or is a certified company allowed to perform internal audits in a different way? As I said, you're allowed to use the internal audits to do them in any way, shape or form or manner. However, you are allowed to use the IRIS audit tool, and we believe it will give you more advantage. Okay, I have one last question. Is it possible to get, purchase, or receive the assessment sheet questionnaire? Okay, so for me, as I said multiple times, it's quite simple. The IRIS assessment sheet is linked within the IRIS Revision 4 Audit Tool web application, and there you will see the IRIS assessment sheet Revision 4. That is the only official way to receive the assessment sheet Revision 4. So if you receive it any other way, shape or form, that is not correct. And if you, of course, as my other colleague said, if you have any other questions, queries, feedback, continuous improvement elements, and so on, do not hesitate to contact the IRIS Management Center. But as promised, Anna Manuel, do you want to answer that question about the scopes? I saw 2 or 3 questions more about scopes. Maybe we can do something more about scopes.
Yeah, okay. Please.
So the question is, how can I find more information about the new revision 4 scopes and the meanings behind it? I think you can refer to that template with the product scope list.
Yes, indeed. Like I said during the webinar, we have different kind of document. One relating to the new product scope revision 4 with some example of product with belonging to the product scope. And also we have a correlation list where you can find the previous product scope and their now are their relation with the new product scope revision 4. So it's a correlation list to know how the previous product scope became in new revision 4. But normally you have all the information in the IRIS portal with some example. What you need to remember today is the fact that we have 9 product scope and in revision 4, and you have some example, and you must go for this 9 product scope now.
Thank you, Anna Manuel. So without further ado, I would like to hereby close this webinar. We thank you for all your questions. Those questions that were not answered, there's just a handful. We will integrate into the next webinar, and we will add to our new and updated guidelines and user manuals that we will create. Of course, it was a great pleasure. If you have any other questions, do not hesitate to contact any of us from the IRIS unit or our info@iris-rail.org joined email that we have. The pleasure is ours always to answer your queries. Good luck for the IRIS certification revision 4 audits. Thank you very much. Goodbye, and have a nice start to the week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.